All right, so you guys have sent in some really interesting stuff for us to look at for this deep dive.
Yeah.
And it's all about those TOEFL and IELTS listening scores.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, definitely. And, you really want to make sure you're getting every point you can on those listening sections, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it can make or break your overall score.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
such a critical part of the exam.
So let's introduce ourselves for anybody new to the show. I'm the host,
And I'm the expert.
and we're here to help you make sense of all these tips and strategies for acing those listening sections.
Yeah, there's a lot of advice out there.
Oh, there's tons.
It can be kind of overwhelming to sift through it all.
Right.
So we're going to really try to break it down.
Yeah, cut through the noise and give you some actionable stuff you can actually use.
Absolutely.
So we're calling this a deep dive into the listening tests.
Yeah, because we're really going to dissect them,
Exactly.
really get into the nitty-gritty of where people struggle.
And I think one of the first things that jumped out from the material you guys sent was this whole idea of understanding the question formats. It's almost like,
It seems basic,
yeah, it seems so obvious.
but you'd be surprised how many people just kind of gloss over it.
Right.
And then they get into the test and they're like, wait,
I don't even know what I'm looking for.
what am I supposed to be listening for
Yeah,
exactly?
so let's break down those question types a little bit because TOEFL and IELTS have their own little quirks.
Yeah, they do.
So for TOEFL listening, we're talking about
All right, so you've got your multiple choice, obviously.
the classic ones.
Those are pretty standard.
Uh-huh. But then you've got,
You've also got those fill in the blanks.
ooh, yeah, those are tricky.
Or sometimes they're like sentence completion.
Right?
So you got to listen for those specific words or phrases to fill in the gaps.
And those can be tough.
Yeah. And then there's the matching,
Ooh, yeah, where you have
where
to...
they give you like statements
Yeah, and then you have to match them up with the speakers or events.
or different parts of the audio.
Right. So it's not just about understanding the content. It's about...
It's about connecting those specific details.
Right. It's a different skill set.
Absolutely.
And then IELTS has its own whole set of, question types.
Oh, yeah. IELTS throws in some curveballs.
Right. So we're talking matching again, but this time it's...
Matching headings to different sections of the text.
Oh, yeah. Which is a little more conceptual.
Yeah, you got to really get the gist of each paragraph.
Uh-huh. And then there's diagram labeling.
Oh, yeah, that one.
That one's so interesting because it's visual,
Yes.
but it's tied to audio.
So they're describing something.
And you gotta, figure out...
Maybe you got to match what you're hearing to the visual cues on the diagram.
It's kind of like a puzzle.
It is. It's very spatial reasoning.
Right.
And then, of course, you've got your sentence completion questions in IELTS as well.
Right, those fill-in-the-blank style.
Similar to TOEFL, but they can be a bit more.
Yeah, they're a little more...
They like to paraphrase a lot more in IELTS.
Right.
So you might not hear the exact words you're looking for.
That's not verbatim recall.
No, it's more about understanding the meaning and then finding the synonym or the equivalent phrase.
So you're being tested on your vocabulary, too.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So knowing those question formats is like step one,
Yeah, that's your foundation.
but then it's about actually practicing with them.
Absolutely, you got to get your hands dirty.
Right, don't just read about them.
Don't just memorize the list of question types.
Do some mock tests work with those real practice materials?
Yeah, and here's a key tip when you're practicing.
Okay.
Don't just hit play on the audio.
Right.
Take a moment to really look at the questions first.
Okay, so before you even listen.
Before you even listen, analyze the structure of each question.
Okay.
What kind of information are they looking for? What are the key words?
So you're almost like priming your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Setting yourself up for success.
Right. You're giving yourself a roadmap. And the video actually mentioned this really simple but effective tip of underlining keywords in the questions.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
Which seems so basic.
But it makes a huge difference.
Right. So why is that so important?
Well, think about it. When you're listening to a passage, especially in a testing environment, there's so much information coming at you.
Right.
It's like a fire hose.
It can be overwhelming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your brain can only process so much at once.
Right.
So by underlining those key words, you're basically creating anchors.
Oh, I like that.
You're telling your brain, these are the important bits.
These are the things I need to pay attention to.
Exactly, you're focusing, you're listening.
So instead of trying to absorb everything equally,
Which is impossible.
you're zeroing in on the specific information that's going to help you answer the questions.
Right. It's all about strategic listening.
Right.
Making those choices about where to focus your attention.
And that point about paraphrasing in those IELTS fill in the blanks, man, that's like a whole other level.
Oh, yeah. IELTS loves to throw those in there.
Right. It's like they're not just testing your listening. They're testing your...
They're testing your vocabulary, your ability to understand synonyms.
Right.
Different ways of expressing the same idea.
So it's not enough to just recognize the word?
No. You got to be thinking about its equivalents.
Right. Like if they say method.
Yeah, they might say technique or approach or strategy in the audio.
Right.
Got to be ready for those subtle shifts in language.
And then, of course, there's the time pressure.
Oh, yeah, the clock is always ticking.
Always. And that's something that the video really emphasized was like, don't get bogged down on a single question.
Yeah, it's so easy to do.
Because you feel like, I should know this.
I should be able to get this.
But sometimes it just doesn't click.
And you can't afford to waste precious minutes.
So how do you actually, train yourself to move on?
Well, it takes practice, but one thing that can help is to have a mental rule.
Okay, like a hard and fast rule.
Like if you haven't heard the answer after a certain amount of time, or if you've been thinking about it for too long, just make a guess and move on.
Okay, so even if you're not sure.
Even if you're not sure, because remember, every question is worth the same amount of points.
So it's better to get through all of them.
Exactly. Maximize your chances.
Than to dwell on one and maybe miss out on easier ones.
Absolutely.
And then the preparation time before the audio starts, that's like gold, right?
Oh, yeah. Those few seconds are crucial.
So how do you make the most of that time?
Well, that's your chance to get a sneak peek at the questions.
Okay.
Read through them quickly, underline those key words we talked about.
Right.
And try to anticipate what kind of information you'll be listening for.
So you're kind of setting up that mental framework.
Exactly. You're priming your brain again.
And that can save you so much time later on.
Absolutely, because you'll be listening with purpose.
Right.
You'll know what to focus on.
And then the warning against looking back at previous questions, that one's tough.
Oh, yeah, it's tempting.
Because you're like, did I get that right?
Second guessing yourself.
But it's a time trap.
It is.
So how do you resist that urge?
Well, you got to remind yourself that every question deserves your full attention.
Right.
Once you've moved on to a new question, that's where your focus needs to be.
Stay in the present moment.
Exactly. Going back will only distract you.
And you might miss something crucial in the current audio.
Exactly.
Now, TOEFL and IELTS have different structures for their listening sections, right?
Yeah, they do.
So TOEFL has those longer
conversations and lectures.
Right, while IELTS has those shorter, more varied segments.
Yeah, different speakers, different accents.
So how does that affect your time management approach for each one?
Well, with TOEFL, you got to be really good at breaking down those longer passages.
Okay.
Into smaller, manageable chunks.
Okay, so like mentally divided up.
Yeah. And then try to answer the related questions after each segment.
Okay.
That way you're not trying to hold too much information in your head at once.
Right. It's like taking it in bite-sized pieces.
Exactly.
And then for IELTS, it's more about being nimble.
Yeah, you got to be quick on your feet.
Because those passages are shorter.
They come at you fast.
Right. So you got to process each one quickly.
Answer the questions and then move on to the next.
So it's a different kind of mental agility.
It is.
And again, timed practice is key, right?
Absolutely. You got to get used to that pace.
To that rhythm.
Yeah, develop that internal clock.
Because it's not just about knowing the answers, it's about being able to do it under pressure.
Exactly.
And within that time limit.
And don't forget about that little window at the end.
Oh, yeah, that last few seconds.
To review your answers.
Right.
Catch those silly mistakes.
The spelling errors, the blanks.
Exactly. Those can cost you points.
So it's worth taking a quick scan.
Absolutely.
So the essence of time management seems to be like Be decisive, use your prep time wisely, train under pressure, and stay focused on the present.
That's it in a nutshell.
Right. Strategic focus.
Not just speed.
Okay, so we've talked about question formats, we've talked about time management.
Two biggies.
Now let's dive into another really important skill, pinpointing key words.
Oh, yeah, this one's crucial.
Because the material emphasized, you don't need to understand every single word to do well on these tests.
That's right. And that's a huge relief for a lot of people.
It is, because it's easy to get overwhelmed by all the words.
Absolutely.
And feel like you need to understand every single one.
But you don't.
But you really don't.
No, you just need to focus on the essential information.
Right, the stuff that's actually going to help you answer the questions.
Exactly.
And the video pointed out that those key pieces of information are often...
names, dates, numbers, specific facts, and details.
Right, those are the nuggets.
The gold nuggets.
That you're looking for.
Absolutely.
So how do you train yourself to pick those out?
Well, one really helpful tip is to first try to grasp the main idea of the passage.
Okay, so like what's the big picture?
Yeah, what's the speaker talking about? What's the overall topic?
Okay.
Once you have that in mind, it's easier to filter out the less important details.
Oh. Right, so you're not getting bogged down in the weeds.
Exactly.
You're listening for those key pieces of information that support the main idea.
Right.
And the video also talked about how understanding the structure of a spoken passage can help.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
So, like, you know, typically there's an introduction.
There's a body where they develop the ideas.
And a conclusion.
Right, and key information is often presented in those specific sections.
So you're kind of listening strategically.
Absolutely.
Knowing where to expect certain types of details.
Exactly.
And then that strategy of looking at the questions before listening and underlining key words there.
Oh, yeah, that's your treasure map.
Right. It's like you're giving your ears a specific target.
Exactly.
So if the question asks, when did this event occur?
Your ears will be perked up for dates and time markers.
Right.
You'll be listening with intention.
And then the encouragement to not be thrown off by unfamiliar vocabulary.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Because it's easy to panic.
It is, especially under pressure.
But you don't have to know every single word.
No, and you probably won't.
Right.
The key is to focus on the overall meaning and use context clues.
Right. So even if you don't recognize a word.
You can often figure out its meaning from the surrounding words and phrases.
Right.
And don't let one unfamiliar word derail your understanding of the whole passage.
Right. It's okay to skip over it.
Yeah, keep moving. Keep listening for those key details.
So the takeaway here is train yourself to be a laser-focused listener.
Exactly.
Zero in on those crucial who, what, when, where, why details.
Don't get lost in the word jungle.
Okay, now let's talk about accents.
Oh, yeah, this one's fun.
It's a challenge for a lot of people.
It can be.
Especially if you've mostly been exposed to one type of English.
Yeah, if you've only ever heard American English, for example.
Right.
And then suddenly you're listening to a British speaker.
It can throw you off.
It can.
And both TOEFL and IELTS, they throw a variety of accents at you.
They do. It's a global test.
Right.
You got to be ready for anything.
So we're talking American, British, Australian.
Yeah, and you might even hear some Canadian or other international accents.
Oh, yeah.
It's all fair game.
And it's not just the pronunciation that can be different.
No, sometimes the vocabulary is different, too.
Right, like biscuit versus cookie.
Yeah. Or arvo for afternoon.
Right. So how do you prepare for this accent challenge?
Well, the best way is to expose yourself to as many different accents as possible.
Okay, so like just immerse yourself.
Yeah, listen to a variety of English audio.
Movies, TV shows, YouTube.
Podcasts, music, anything you can get your hands on.
And the video specifically recommended TED Talks.
Oh, yeah, TED Talks are great.
Why those?
Because they have speakers from all over the world.
Oh, right.
And they generally speak very clearly.
So even if the accent is unfamiliar.
You can still understand the content.
Right.
Podcasts are good, too.
And then, of course, there are listening materials specifically designed for TOEFL and IELTS.
Oh, yeah. Those are essential.
Right, because they will intentionally include a range of accents.
Yeah, it's targeted practice.
So you're getting used to the specific types of accents you're likely to encounter on the test.
Yeah.
And the tip to focus on the overall meaning, even if you miss a word or two due to the accent, that's really important.
Oh, yeah, don't get hung up on individual words.
Right.
Focus on the bigger picture.
The main idea.
Yeah, and those key details, names, dates, numbers.
Right. Those are your anchors.
Exactly.
So the strategy here is expose yourself to lots of different accents, use targeted practice materials, and prioritize understanding the overall message.
That's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Now, this next point from the material was really interesting. The importance of understanding the listening context.
Oh, yeah. Context is everything.
Right. It's not just about the words themselves. It's about the situation in which they're spoken.
Absolutely.
And the video pointed out that there are different types of listening passages you might encounter.
Yeah, you could have conversations, lectures, interviews, discussions.
And each one has its own unique context. So, like, a lecture is going to have a different context than a casual conversation.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So how does understanding the context actually help you with the listening?
Well, it gives you clues about what to expect.
Okay.
Like, if you know you're listening to an academic lecture,
Okay.
you can anticipate a more formal tone
Right.
and maybe some specialized vocabulary related to the subject matter.
Right.
Whereas if it's a conversation between friends,
It's going to be more relaxed.
much more casual. Yeah,
And the language will be different.
absolutely.
And it's not just about the formality. It's also about the purpose of the communication, right?
Yeah. Is the speaker trying to inform you, persuade you, make a request, or just chat?
Right. All of that influences how you interpret the words.
Absolutely.
So the advice to take a few moments before the audio to read the questions and try to anticipate the context, that seems really smart.
Oh, yeah. It's like pre-reading a chapter.
Yeah.
It gives you a framework.
So you're not going in blind.
Exactly.
And then when you're actually listening,
You can be paying attention to those contextual clues.
right, like the tone of voice, the relationship between the speakers, the setting,
All those little details add up.
and help you understand the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
So practice predicting the context and then checking if you are right.
Yeah, it's a good exercise.
It makes you a more active listener.
It does.
So the key here is pay attention to the who, what, where, when, and why of the listening situation.
Exactly.
It's not just about the words, it's about the whole picture.
The whole context.
All right, let's talk about that feeling of being rushed during the test.
Oh, yeah, that's a common one.
Because the clock is ticking.
It is.
And you've got all these questions.
And it's easy to feel like you gotta hurry.
Right, and that can lead to mistakes.
It can.
So how do you avoid that rush?
Well, first of all, you gotta practice under timed conditions.
Right, get used to that pressure.
Yeah, develop that internal clock.
So you know how much time you have for each question.
Exactly.
And then the advice to take a moment to think before answering, that's important.
Oh, yeah, don't just blurt out the first thing that comes to mind.
Right.
Take a breath, process the information, consider your options.
And if you're really stuck on a question,
Skip it and come back later.
don't waste time agonizing over it.
Absolutely.
And use those short breaks between questions to quickly review your answers.
Yeah, catch any obvious errors.
Right. And then during the actual audio, stay focused on the current question.
Don't let your mind wander to what's coming next.
Right.
Stay in the moment.
One question at a time.
And the suggestion to listen for the main idea first and then focus on details.
That can be really helpful.
Why is that?
Because it prevents you from feeling overwhelmed by all the information.
Right.
You get the big picture first.
And then you can fill in the details.
Exactly.
So it's about pacing yourself, prioritizing understanding, and staying focused.
Absolutely.
All right, last but not least, let's talk about review.
Oh, yeah. This is the key.
Because the video really emphasized the importance of going back over the transcript and your answers after a practice test. It's where the real learning happens.
Right, because you're not just seeing your score.
No, you're figuring out why you got things right or wrong.
Right. And the transcript can help you pinpoint those moments where you went astray.
Absolutely.
Like maybe you misheard a word or misunderstood a phrase.
Or maybe you got lucky and guessed correctly,
Right.
but you don't really understand why.
So reviewing helps you clarify all of that.
Yeah, it fills in the gaps.
And the suggestion to note down any key words, phrases, accents, or sections that caused you difficulty.
That's like creating your own personalized study guide.
Right.
You're identifying your weaknesses.
So you can focus on those areas in your future practice.
Exactly.
And the video even said you should review the questions you got right.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Why is that?
Because it reinforces your understanding.
Okay.
And it helps you make sure you didn't just get lucky.
Right.
You actually knew the material.
And the advice to revisit challenging passages and listen to them multiple times while following along with the transcript.
Oh, yeah, that's a great way to solidify your comprehension.
Repetition is key,
It is.
especially when you're trying to master something new.
Absolutely.
So reviewing is not just an optional step.
No, it's essential.
It's part of the learning process.
It is.
It's how you identify your weaknesses and improve your skills.
Absolutely.
So to recap, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've talked about understanding question formats, mastering time management, the skill of pinpointing keywords, navigating different accents, appreciating the listening context, avoiding the rush, and the power of review.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But these are all crucial strategies for success on the TOEFL and IELTS listening sections.
And remember, it takes time and practice.
Oh yeah, don't expect to master all of this overnight.
No, it's a process.
But with consistent effort and focused practice, you can definitely improve your listening skills
Absolutely.
and boost those scores.
Yeah, so keep at it.
And don't give up.
And don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it.
Right. There are resources out there.
There are.
Teachers, tutors, online materials.
So take advantage of them.
So as you're thinking on everything we've discussed today, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
Which of these challenges do you think is going to be the biggest hurdle for you personally?
Yeah. Which one do you need to focus on the most?
And what's one specific action you can take this week to start tackling it?
Yeah. Make a plan and start taking steps.
Because even small steps add up over time.
Did you do?
So keep up the hard work, stay focused, and you'll get there.
Absolutely.
We're rooting for you.
We are.
All right, that's it for our deep dive today.
Thanks for listening.
We'll catch you next time.
Bye.